I reached my own rock bottom when life gave me everything that I wished for. As a kid, you're always told like what the standards of a happy and healthy life are, you know? And I reached a point in my life where I had it all. My career was on a peak. I shot short movies that had international recognitions. One of them that was part of a short film series that even got nominated to the Emmys. I had a lot of success with women. I used to go out every night. I used to be like guest listed in all the clubs. And yet, it's the time of my life where I felt the most depressed ever, and no one around me knew it. This is where like I got my big slap in the face. It got me into a whole like universe which actually connected with layers of life that I was not connected to really find my essence, my what really lies at my core. And now I feel like I'm finally ready to actually speak. I feel like this is a personal quest that everyone has to go on.
Karl, welcome to the Everything You Are podcast. I'm very happy to have you here and excited for this conversation.
And this is where I say I'm honored. Thank you for having me.
Today we're going to know more about the way you see your work, the way you see and experience life in general, and how your life experiences feed into the work that you do. So for me, this is a really interesting topic that touches on both creativity and life experiences and how these two play together. So, and now you're also in the process of starting a new project. Maybe you want to speak a bit about this.
I think the conversation will lead us naturally to this subject later on because, it's a bit like if I want to summarize all my life experiences and put them into one place, this is where it led me.
Okay.
You know,
That's
so we're going to talk about it in depth.
Excited to know more.
Soon.
Okay. And so first, to start with, for you, how do you see your work, or how do you describe what you do?
Do you want the public version or the personal one?
The personal one.
The personal one, my work so far, I don't feel like it resembles me in a way.
Okay.
So most of the projects I have done so far are projects that, of course, are birthed out of passion. Because I discovered very early on that I wanted to do films, that I was made for the creative world rather than the corporate and more like structured world in a way. And so I've always had a lot of fun while producing my stuff and working on my stuff. But whenever I looked at them, when like after completion, no matter the awards, the recognition, the success they had, I never felt like satisfied, if that makes sense. Because I just felt like, okay, it's just nice visuals, fun storyline, good actors, whatever, you know. It doesn't have this extra punch, this extra thing that comes from deep in my heart, you know. Like looking back now at my career so far, the one thing that I have noticed is that we don't really prioritize finding our purpose in life and finding what we really have to say and how we see the world, our own vision of the world, before getting into our careers. And for me personally, based on my own experience, this is what was lacking. And I think this is up until today is what bothered me in the work that I've done. You know, like I reached a point where visually I knew exactly the looks that I like to achieve. I knew musically what kind of audio track or like soundtrack I'd like to have to my films. I knew the kind of acting, of actors, of storytelling, of structures. I knew all these things, but it's like a writer knowing how to type, you know, knowing how to open Word or whatever software they use, or even a typewriter, and operating this and having a bunch of words of like, you know, the ones you find in SAT books, and all these very complex and beautiful way of saying things, but having nothing to say. And I think that this is where the priority lies, in my opinion. And it's something that's really undisclosed and that people don't really give a lot of importance to.
And so until now, you don't feel like you really understood what it is that you want to say, or really managed to communicate that. But has it evolved since you started until now? Do you feel like you are reaching this point?
Up until now, in all the films that I did, I never really asked myself what these messages and purpose and all these things were, you know. But right now, I'm at a place in my life where I spent 2 or 3 years working on myself, exploring everything that life has to offer, really going into the extremes of life in every single way in order to really find my essence, my what really lies at my core. And now I feel like I'm finally ready to actually speak and to actually craft stuff. So I'm excited about what's to come, but I'm not happy. Like, I'm very grateful for all the experiences and the amazing lessons I've had in the past, but I'm not satisfied at all with any films that I have on my show reel.
That's interesting, the what you described, that you went through this journey to actually learn what it is that you have to say and question yourself a lot. Can you tell us more about this?
Yeah. It's gonna sound weird to a lot of people, but
Okay.
I reached my own rock bottom when life gave me everything that I wished for,
Okay.
which is kind of crazy. And up until now, whenever I reflect on the matter, I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. How? Doesn't make sense, you know? So as a kid, you're always told like what the standards of a happy and healthy life are, you know? Be successful in what you do, have friends, be outgoing, do a bunch of money, have recognition, have fame, have success when it's about like romantic success. And, you know, like, and I reached a point in my life where I had it all. I really had it all, you know, at 21 years old in Lebanon. We're not in the US or in anywhere where the economic situation helps you, or like the density of people helps you to reach things easier in a faster way, you know. We're in a tiny country with a tiny crowd that's interested into arts and culture. And yet I managed to buy myself a car at 21. And I was directing and producing a lot of things that were related to advertising. And like, I was doing good, you know, my career was on a peak. I shot like short movies that had like international recognitions. One of them that was part of a short film series that even got nominated to the Emmys at 21 years old, you know, a small Lebanese person from a tiny village called Beit Shabib, you know, it's like, I had a lot of success with women. I used to go out every night. I used to be like guest listed in all the clubs, and at 21 years old, you know. And yet, it's the time of my life where I felt the most depressed ever, and no one around me knew it because they were looking at me and be like, "Oh, this guy, he's got shit sorted out. You know, he's got his shit together. He's doing amazing." And it was not the case at all. At all, I was filled with insecurities. I was full of anger and rage against life in general. I felt a constant need to prove myself. And I felt like there was this huge void that I was trying to fill with all these things that I was doing. And by society's standards and norms, I shouldn't have felt this way, you know? And this is where like I got my big slap in the face, and I was like, dude, there's something not working. There's something not worth it. What are you actually doing? What are you doing?
Yeah, it's crazy because externally, if someone would have looked at you, they would have never known that you felt this way. But the gap between the internal and external was very high. And also, I think it's not that uncommon. It happens also with, for example, athletes when they reach the peak or they win that medal, I don't know, that award that they wanted. They have like they get depressed after, or also when you look at these films like Bohemian Rhapsody and the Elton John and stuff, when they're at their peak, they feel very bad and very depressed. So I feel like it does happen that external success is not, it's not always internally fulfilling.
I think it's quite the opposite. You know, external success, when the internal is not successful,
Yes.
can only shatter you even more. Because what I don't know Freddie Mercury personally, you know, so I can't tell him to speak about his experience. But on a personal level, what I felt back then is that, okay, I'm supposed to be happy.
Yeah.
So if people ask me, how are you doing? I'm saying happy. I'm doing good. Because this is what I was told good was. And happy was. And the goal or purpose of life was, you know, fame, money, success. Like, this was it, you know.
Yes.
I've reached it, and yet I felt like shit. And I feel like there's a big, like, the things that people seek in life or at least how society functions in a way, is based on the wrong things. We constantly chase frivolous pleasures. We're constantly looking at, like, running after stuff that really are just here to fill this void, whether it's fame, whether it's affection, attention, whether it's love, whether it's anything. People just run and run and run towards these things because they feel like they will feel better in some way, And
Yeah. What is this void?
I think that this void is mainly caused by not being at peace with yourself. Because then
what does it mean to be at peace with yourself? How do you see it?
It's a big question. It's a big question,
Yeah.
Like, I can think of 10 books at the moment that I can recommend that have been around for thousands of years, and that people still study in schools and churches and like religious temples and stuff, and still don't manage to reach it,
Yes.
I feel like this is a personal quest that everyone has to go on in their own way. But we're gonna reach, like, I can talk about my own experience if you want, but I feel like it's finding that place where you're actually acting upon love for everyone and every living thing on earth, knowing your place in this universe, not like scientifically, but knowing that you're not dissociated from everything around you, and that you're not the center of this world, and that your world is not the world. You're just part of it, just as much as an ant is part of it, and you have no more significant than an ant in this universe. And it's a harsh truth to understand, but it's being at peace with all these things.
Yes.
And understanding how to find a real happiness, a real kind of this emotion of relief and of gratefulness, of gratitude every single day, and not seek it in frivolous pleasures, So, like, for instance, I used to party because partying got me pleasure. But I quickly understood that the pleasure that I was getting from partying was me running away from something else. And I was trying then again to fill this void with going out, having people around me, being drunk, dancing, shouting, screaming, having a beautiful energy around me. But it would end 2 hours after the party, not even, like moments after you cross the door and you enter your car and you leave home. You're like, oh my God.
Yes.
Okay, I had fun, but it's done. And then you seek something else.
It's temporary. It's not like groundedness. Yes.
And it's always temporary after temporary after temporary. But the rest of the day, you feel like just useless, I guess, and desperate and lonely and unsatisfied and unfulfilled and all these things. And I feel like, being at peace with yourself is just a constant state of bliss, happiness, or just love, where you just treat your life with a big smile on your face, and not this fake smile that's like positive affirmations in the morning. Oh my God, keep on smiling. No. Where you have a problem, you're actually happy to solve the problem. The problem isn't going to cause stress to you. Anything happens in front of you, you know actually how to tackle it with like the most loving attitude. And this alone, in my opinion, is like so important.
I feel like, as you said, it's not that to be happy, being at peace, because I felt also in my experience, I wanted to reach that point where I was happy all the time, or always joyful, or always feeling good. But actually being at peace, it's not always being happy, but even when you feel these other emotions or these uncomfortable emotions, being able to deal with them and to actually accept them and learn from them and grow through them.
A small philosophical parenthesis of the conversation, but this universe works on a dualistic purpose, There's no birth without death.
Yes.
There's no love without hate. There's no happiness without sadness. There's nothing without its opposite.
Yeah.
So being always happy and always joyful and always laughing is not a reality. It's a misconception that's really far-fetched, It's like merely impossible to reach that, because life is made out of all these things, if you go to nature, which is, in my opinion, the greatest work of art out there, you see so much beauty, like the lushness, the greenery, the rocks, the landscapes, the air, everything, the animals, the insect, everything just works so perfectly. But if you look closer, there's a lot of destruction going on there as well. You know, whether it's the food chain where animals have to eat each other and just like to attack on each, like it's insane.
Yeah.
You know, and a tree that dies, or like a fire that happens, a wildfire, or like everything, like there's a lot of destruction over there as well. But it's important to notice also that the destruction is necessary for to keep up with this ecosystem as well. And I think that life is the same. It's exactly the same. So a tree that dies actually gives so much nutrients to the soil for another tree to grow out of it. You know, the decomposition of it, and it feeds insects, it feeds fungi, it feeds so many things that you feel like, okay, but the death of this tree is bringing life to so many other things. And I feel like this is the same with life, you know, like it's not about being happy all the time. It's about accepting that life has its ups and downs. It's about accepting that it's sometimes extremely joyful, it's sometimes extremely painful. You know, it's all about finding this balance where you're just in a state where you see everything, you understand everything for what it is, and you're just flowing with it.
Yeah, I like that. So being at peace is being at peace with both the dark and very dark parts of life, and also with the light and very light parts of life, and integrating both of those. These parts. So okay, let's explore that through your experience. So you were at this stage where externally everything was going well, and on paper your life was a perfect life, but internally you were feeling like empty, like a void. First, let's explore this one, and then we can see how you,
of course,
you discovered other, like how you went through this journey of self-discovery and actually went out of this. But at that moment,
welcome to Lebanon.
Yeah. What's happening?
Not sure if it's gunshots or fireworks, but it's surely something to celebrate.
They will continue talking as if nothing happened. So in this moment where you were feeling empty or void, were you admitting to yourself, like how was it internally in your mind?
Internally, it was very weird and very overwhelming because I didn't know what was going on, and I was constantly in a state of denial.
Okay.
I was like, no, everything's fine, everything's fine, everything's fine. This is life, everything's fine, you know? And I wasn't admitting it to myself. Up until I discovered that I had a severe case of OCD. Which in my case resulted in like visions and compulsions, and like a lot of just anyone could look it up online and just find what OCD is about. No, it's not like being very tidy, and this is a compulsion that exists, but it's not that. So I started having this, and I realized like this was my wake-up call that something was fucked up in my brain. You know, because I was in complete denial. Everything like la vie en rose kind of, but with this very big emptiness and void within me, and this sadness, this underlying sadness that I was not admitting. And then this came, and I was like, okay, no, something's clearly wrong, something's not okay. And this started to grow because I didn't want to get treated. You know, like we're all told like we don't need therapists and we don't need therapy and whatever kind of whatever. So I was like, no, I don't want to go to therapy. I'm going to be okay by myself and stuff like that. And I wasn't even sure about what was going on up until I looked it up, understood that I had some kind of OCD. And back then I was in New York City trying to pursue a master over there. And I went to the college counselor, I don't know how you call her, like the psychiatrist, like psychologist of the, so the counselor. And I was like, I'm having 1, 2, 3, and it's really, really bugging me, you know, like it's insane, and it's putting me like, it's like destroying me from the inside. And she's like, oh, I'm gonna recommend you a therapist, and it's a common case of OCD, don't worry about it, it's nothing like major, you know. And this happened, and then COVID happened, and I wasn't able to go into therapy and stuff like that. So, and like when you have roommates and you're living with people and stuff, you don't want to be on BetterHelp or anything where you're like just
Yeah.
chatting to a therapist in front of people, or like with like super thin walls where everyone can listen to what you have to say.
Yeah.
And I was faced with no other choice than I was faced with two choices actually, because we always have two choices. Choice number one is to accept the statu quo and to be like, okay, this is what life is. I'm fucked up. I have everything. Everything's amazing. Everything's like great. I'm okay. I have this. It's okay. Rawa. I'm going to keep on going and moving the way I am, which a lot of people around us are actually doing.
Yeah.
And the second choice I had in front of me was to actually do my research, take advantage of the COVID situation where we were all like stuck at home, do my research, look for alternatives, understand what was going on within me, understand how I reached this point, and knowing how to overcome everything and discovering this, and it was quite a journey. So it started this way. And a very popular opinion out there in psychology or on the internet or wherever, like just search for these things, is that such cases are not curable.
The OCD that you had.
OCD, or whether it's anxiety or depression or anything, like they mainly tell you need pills, or you need to cope with it or deal with it or live with it, or kind of understand how to tame it or how to accept it and stuff like that. But it's mainly commonly believed that it's incurable. At least when I was doing my research. I don't know now what's going on in the world. And so I was kind of coming to peace with that and trying to cope and just understand and manage myself and get rid of compulsions while accepting the obsessions, which were like visual imagery that were unwanted, that was just like triggered in my mind and stuff like that. And I started to read a lot about psychology and to really deepen my understanding of psychology and my interest in psychology. So, and this started to like go on and on and on up until December 2020, when I really reached my rock bottom, where I felt like nothing was happening well. I was doing all these researches, they were leading nowhere. I just came back to Lebanon, and I really, like, at this point I couldn't go to therapy because of COVID and stuff, and nothing was going okay, and my sadness kept on growing. And because of like this interest in psychology, I actually started to acknowledge that I was sad, and I was not in denial anymore, and I was like looking at everything right in front of me. I was like, oh my God, like it's fuck. What the fuck is this life?
Yeah.
What is life? That's a disgusting adventure, and how are we living, and why are we living? Like it was such a disturbing moment for me and period of my life, because like it's like big truths that were being revealed to me in a way, and that were extremely overwhelming, extremely disturbing, and that I couldn't handle at the time, So when this happened, I remember picking up my journal and giving myself like 6 months to do something about it, to find a way, because I reached a point where literally I it's done. I didn't want this anymore. I didn't want this life anymore. I didn't want anything of it anymore. So, and when I reached this stage, I was like, okay, moment of distress. Then again, two choices. It's either you go down the rabbit hole and you drown and you get lost, or you do something about it and you start to work on yourself. You start to looking for an alternative you start to look for alternatives. You start to do anything that's within your power to do any subtle change in your life, And I'm like, okay, I'm going to give myself 6 months. Let's see what I can do. And very randomly, on the same day, I have an advertising for Wim Hof, like the cold therapy exposure and the breath work and all these things that just pops in front of me on my feed. I'm like, this is it. I didn't know where to start. I didn't know what to do. I was like, this is it. I'm going to start with this. So I started to do breath work, and I realized like how much of our body, or the functioning of our bodies and how much of life actually we didn't know about.
Mm.
You know, there's an extreme sensations that you start to feel out of breath work or cold therapy, cold exposure therapy, sorry.
Mm.
There are so many things that you notice, so many things about like how to control your mind, you know, because like when you're in the cold water, the only thing that you have to think of is nothing. It's being with your body, because as soon as you let thoughts distract you, you get your whole system distracted and you can just fall sick, you know, because the whole point of it is just maintaining your breath, being focused on your breath, letting the body do what it usually does, you know, without interfering with stress. And this learned me a lot about how to control my mind and not letting it control me in a way. And one thing led to another. I discovered meditation, I discovered yoga, I discovered like a lot of alternative or like Eastern philosophies and Eastern tools and practices that I started integrating in my life without any clear goal, you know. My only goal, the only thing that I really wanted is to get myself out of the shithole I was in, the emotional and personal shithole I was in, you know. And I started with all these things. And I quickly learned that a very uncommon thing in the modern world is that you can actually control your mind, and your mind is a tool. It's not you. You know,
Yeah,
like when you get into
so true.
Vipassana or any like meditations or any things like that, one of the biggest teachings that you learn is that you're not the body and you're not the mind. So you're
Take the
actually
observer point of
exactly
view.
you're
Yes.
actually controlling your body and you're controlling your mind. And at first I didn't believe it. You know, I was like, what the fuck is this? I thought you'd say, when I die, you know, like what's going on? And then I was like, you know what, let's give it the benefit of the doubt, because when I did my breath work, I felt like that I was feeling my body. I was feeling the blood flowing within my body. I was feeling like an energy flow within me. I was feeling completely disconnected, as well as connected to my body, you know? So I could feel like, whether meditating or doing breath work, you could feel an entity, which is a body. It's a mass, but you can feel it. And if I can feel it, then I'm not that mass. You know what I'm saying?
I'm the one who's feeling it.
I'm the one who's feeling it.
Yes.
And the same with the mind, you know,
Yes.
when I started to think of it, like I'm having thoughts. Thoughts are passing. Who's listening? Who's watching the thoughts? Like, mindfuck, you know, like, yeah, it makes sense. So I linked it all to my OCD and like, okay, I'm having flashes. I'm not that. This is not me, you know. And if there's a mechanism that's at work that's actually causing these things to happen, then what if I can control it? Then what if I can catch it as soon as it happens and start to work with it to get rid of it, or to rewire my brain in a way that just controls it? And I started to apply these teachings into my everyday life, you know, continuing to like meditation and breath work, like a lot of things, just moving my body in any way, like sports, yoga, whatever. And just, it got me into a whole like universe, like the wellness universe, if you want to call it that way, which actually makes so much sense. And which actually connected with layers of life that I was not connected to, you know, like feeling your real life essence, you know, like as soon as you notice that you're an observer, you're not actually these things, it puts so much perspective into your life. You know, it puts you, okay, then, ouf, je sens qu'on va partir très loin là.
But no, that's so interesting, and I relate. Like I relate a lot to having these realizations. But okay, if we recap a bit, you know what you went through. So first, you were in denial.
What?
You weren't saying everything is fine, until your mind or your body put something in your way that you couldn't ignore anymore through the OCD. So it was something that was affecting your daily life. And when that happened, you said, okay, there is actually a problem. And now I have two choices. Either I live with it and I stay miserable, or I take another route. So you decided, so there was actually through all of this time, something in you that wanted to be better. Like
It's
a
an
hope.
urgency. It was a survival
Yes.
instinct.
Yes, there was this.
It's
This is not life. I want
something
to.
within me knew
Mm,
that that was not life.
mm,
You know,
mm.
I was always told by my parents and by my teachers or by anyone around me that I was always like a révolté.
Yeah.
You know, like a revolution, not revolutionary, but like I was like just
Rebel.
a rebel.
Rebel.
A rebel. I was a rebel. I
Mm.
was always a rebel. You know, I was always rejecting everything that was given to me. You know,
Yeah.
because whenever I didn't feel like this was linked to my truth, I wouldn't do it. Not knowing this, like I didn't have this mechanism and this awareness of like how and where it came from,
Mm.
but I would question everything.
Yeah.
Everything.
Mm.
I was like, no, this is not how things should work. This is
Mm.
not nice. This is not, you know?
Mm.
And the same thing that was birthing these thoughts and this attitude is what took me through this journey, you know?
Okay, so it was I don't accept that this is life, and so I'm gonna find another way.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
And then you made the choice again that okay, I'm seeing all of this, but I don't want to let it control me. I want to continue understanding it. And so then you understood that actually all of this is not me. I am observing it. And you started observing it instead of like and identifying to it. And the more you were observing it, the more you were kind of making peace with it or accepting it and then transforming it. Is that how you see it?
I see. Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
I think that the big part here, the big thing that if you want to summarize the whole thing,
Mm.
is that the big journey is a dissociation from the ego.
Mm.
The ego being your identification to yourself. So I am a filmmaker. No, I'm not. I do films.
Mm.
I am funny. I am lazy. I am. No, you're not this. This is how you grew up to be. These are all tools. These are all like conditioning stuff. Like it's stuff that people conditioned your mind into becoming, but it's not you. And the ultimate quest that I went through in the end, like what I felt and what I started to understand was to dissociate myself from the ego, which is this self-identification, like I am that. No, I'm no one. I'm just having this experience because all of these things are things that people gave to me and that I absorbed from my environment, you know. There's not things that I have personally done
Mm.
and crafted or birthed. It's accepting actually the whole journey that I've went through was accepting that the only thing that I am is consciousness. It's a state of awareness of this human experience that we're having, you know. And
Mm.
I started realizing as well as like how much society was pushing us in the opposite way of finding this truth and of being just okay with it all. And spending a lot of time in nature taught me that as well, is that we're all part of this ecosystem. We're all part of this universe, you know? I mean, if I'm consciousness, a tree as well is part of, like, there's something animating this tree. There's the same energy that's animating me, that's animating a plant, that's animating a rock, even if it looks very dead to us, but it's atoms and molecules that are put together and that are binded and that form this thing, you know. And we know, thanks to science, we know that an atom is not something that's dead, you know. There's like a movement. There's like the neutron, proton, electron, sorry for my French, but that are
Yes.
turning around a
Yeah.
nucleus.
Like energy.
There's energy, there's life, there's movement in it, you know. And just understanding this bare
Yes.
truth that we are nothing,
Mm.
and that this thing right there is the reason of all our sadness, of all our problems, of all our aches, of all the hate, of all the wars, of all the separations, of all the destruction that is happening around us. That was the biggest revelation of my life, you know.
Mm.
And well, we went a bit far.
Yeah. No, I relate a lot. I feel like I also had the same moment where I realized, so for me, I felt it as if I was reconnecting to the spiritual aspect of life and seeing that we are like spiritual beings before being physical beings with thoughts, and we are in different dimensions, and I feel like we can speak about this a lot.
Yeah,
uh,
it's like this is the rabbit hole, like
yes,
we plunge in it, we're
yes,
done.
yeah.
But
But I feel like also in my experience, I had this realization and went deep into this aspect of life about being like spiritual and observing, etc. And at some point, I felt I went to an extreme that wasn't necessarily beneficial. Maybe it was necessary for the moment, where I feel like, okay, then everything is wrong. Like everything that we're doing doesn't matter because we are just the present moment and we are just energy. And then I had to reconnect that, okay, we are spiritual, but we are also humans with emotions and thoughts. And we're always going to have these, we're never going to be fully in the present moment and spiritual and at peace. So it was also reconciliating the both aspects.
absolutely, I get you
Yeah.
absolutely, because I've been through the same experience.
Yes.
When I started to get into this world, I saw how pointless life,
Mm.
like modern life is. Like, why do you have cement everywhere?
Yeah.
Why do I need to buy a new pair of sneakers every month? Like, why do I need to eat an avocado when it's not avocado season? Like, there's so many things that start to make no sense at all, and you're like, what are we living? So I went into the other extreme as well, where my
Yes.
whole life turned around yoga, meditation, being in nature, planting and harvesting my own food, living off the grid, like doing everything I could to leave society and build my own little realm, my own little happy world where everything made sense to me.
Yes.
And
And I feel like also in these moments or these phases, you feel like you're being super spiritual, but in reality, no, you're not.
it's so interesting because it's exactly the realization of the year, of like the last year.
Yeah.
So I reached a phase where when I started doing all these things, I felt so good about myself, so good. I felt like I was a god. Yes, finally, I got it
Yeah.
right. I'm so happy.
Mm.
I'm fulfilled. I'm in tune with myself. I'm in tune with the laws of the universe. Everything is just amazing and brilliant. And wow, up until it's not anymore. And the main reason why is that we're here. We're part of it all. We're humans,
Mm.
and the life we were put in, like, it's not, I don't believe in coincidences. I don't believe that, oh my God, I just happened to be birthed because my parents fell in love and they had sex and they had me. I don't believe
Mm.
this. I mean, we're put here in 20, in like in this century, in this era of time, in this country, in this place, because we kind of have a purpose to fulfill.
Yeah.
And me rejecting everything to create my own world is running away
Mm.
from my responsibilities. Two, it's creating a lot of damage around me because all the people that gave me the most love and the most time and the most dedication in their life, I'm actually turning my back against them and just walking away. Three, because I don't know if it's now I think it's a benediction and it's a gift, but sometimes it may feel as a curse. But this ability to see everything that's wrong in the world, you have this. You're one of the few people that actually see
Mm.
what's wrong, and you have the audacity of leaving.
Yeah.
How can you?
Mm.
Like, it's the easiest thing in the world, into the wild. Oh my God, I have my Harvard degree, it doesn't make sense, I'm gonna go and live in Alaska alone. Amazing, needed, much needed. Reconnect with yourself, get a sense of spirituality, get in tune with everything. But are you gonna stay there? This is done. In his case, like, it's very funny because in his case, it actually made a lot of good for a lot of people that read the book or
Mm-hmm.
watched the film because they got inspired.
Yeah, I haven't
But
watched it by the
in
way.
other cases, I met amazing people and super interesting and smart people in Lebanon, even, that just left everything and just disappeared
Yeah.
completely. And now I'm feeling like, is this actually an act of love and an act of responsibility? And do you actually have a purpose, or is this cowardness?
Mm.
Or is this like just being ungrateful for everything? And finding the easy way out. And so what brought me back in a way was this sense of responsibility and duty.
Yeah.
You know, I had to go that way and that extreme to actually kind of cultivate and embody the tools that I learned, because being in this, like acknowledging the human existence and this humanity that we have is beautiful, but knowing how to still deal with it and still have control over your emotions, your body, your wellness, your sense of aliveness, your contact with your life force is also something that you have to work on a daily basis, you know? Like if you live in nature, it's very easy, it's done.
Yeah.
It's done. You don't even have to practice anything. You're just there, you're in tune with everything, and that's it, you know? But in the city, where you have like noise all the time, you have people to deal with, you have other egos, you have like so many things that are putting you around in like all senses. It's like, it's obvious that you're going to get lost and that you're going to get just overwhelmed and you're going to fall back into like lower frequencies, if we can call it this way. But in this way, like in these situations, I think that what we ought to do is to actually find our ground and our balance and use these tools to actually just go back to a state or stay in a state as long as possible of like complete balance and bliss that will allow you to tackle this insane modern life in the most beautiful way possible.
Yeah, and I feel like sometimes it's nice to get lost. Like you have to get lost and feel all that you want to feel and just
it's essential.
Yeah.
Go back to the duality part, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
You learn from your mistakes. You do a mistake, you will never learn. You know, there's no beauty without darkness. Like there's no way out if you don't go through the darkness.
Yes.
And it's all part of the beauty and mysterious ways of life, you know?
I feel like some people are going to listen to this and going to understand directly what we're speaking about. And some people are going to think, what are they, what are they talking about?
I get this a lot, by the way. Like whenever I have this kind of conversation with someone, they always ask me, are you on psychedelics? I'm like, no. No. You don't need drugs to reach this. You don't need anything. Like just go back in history, you know, like go back. It's even easier than it seems, you know.
It's so obvious that we don't see it.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, whether we want to go into like the yogic / Hinduism part of things, the Bhagavad Gita and like all the Vedas were written like 10,000 years ago. They're all saying the same thing. They're all pointing out to the same thing. Go back to something more relatable. The Bible.
Yeah, the religion.
Christ is an embodiment of all these things, you know? The figure of Jesus Christ. Even philosophers, like, because a lot of people are atheists as well nowadays. Go read Plato, The Republic. The guy had it all figured out, like, you know, and pointing out to the same exact things. And Sufism and Islam and in the Quran, you have a lot of passages that point out to the same exact thing. And you're like, okay, they're all saying the same thing. Why am I not getting it?
And I feel like there are different levels of getting it. Like first you get it rationally, then you get it emotionally, then you get it at like deeper levels.
It's embodying.
Yeah.
You know, like first we count on our fingers, then we have to count, like we find patterns, and then instinctively people just like 10 plus 10, 20, you know?
Yeah.
It's practice. It's just constant practice and coming back to this, you know, because if you read, you're not going to get it.
And so how did that help you in your psychology or in your way of thinking, in your way of living your life and how you were feeling?
In many ways, actually. On a psychological level, it allowed me actually to get rid of this disease that I had within me. And that to have complete control of it.
Okay.
You know, complete control of my thoughts. You have times where you actually let go or where you actually fall back in like emotional stuff, where you have like, it's normal not to always be like just stone, but it's a practice. And for me, like, I want to do whatever I can to reach this phase where I'm just constantly stable at all times, you know? But I can't remember the last time I had a vision. I can't remember the last time I had a compulsion. you know, and
Yeah.
by I can't remember, it's like years. It's not days or months or weeks. It's
Wow.
years.
And that they said it wasn't
Curable,
curable.
yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy.
So this alone on a psychological level was
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah. And this was by actually observing the thoughts and detaching yourself from them.
Exactly.
They started to have less influence on you.
Yep.
Okay.
Exactly. And trying to understand where they came from.
Did you understand where they came
Yeah.
from? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. It's daring to go to places that are pretty dark, that might be hurtful, that might be very overwhelming at first, but it's going there, understanding, making peace with it, because all your traumas in life, even if they're caused by someone else, the person who's causing, and this is going to be very, 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 I'm searching for the word while emphasizing on very triggering for a lot of people and controversial.
Okay.
But even the people who triggered these traumas or who provoked these traumas didn't do it willingly.
Yeah.
And I'm saying anything, any trauma, any bad action, they were made out of state of ignorance. Understanding that, okay, if there's this person has his own world that's actually governing, and I happen to be the recipient of it, and it's not because of me that this happened to me, but just being at peace with that and being like, okay, I didn't do anything, it just happened. This is the way things happened. And accepting and being forgiving that, okay, it's an unforgivable act, but it happened by stuff that are bigger than this person, because this person was not aware or conscious. He was not observing himself while doing that. He was just taken by impulse and instincts. Then, how did we get here?
Yeah, now I was trying to, but no, I know, I know how we got here. So you said that by observing the thoughts, you were able to retrace where they came from.
Yeah.
And when retracing where they came from, you were able to reframe the situation that happened, not by blaming others or blaming yourself or victimization, but just seeing the situation as it was, removing the interpretation that you had made about yourself, about them, etc.
Just understanding the situation for what it is.
Exactly.
And from from an unbiased point of view. And this alone helps you just understand life in a different way.
Yeah, I agree. And also I feel, let me know if you agree, that it's not like from one time, okay, I accept it. Sometimes it's like a process.
It can take a
back
lifetime.
And forth. But yeah, it's just training this part of yourself that is more accepting and understanding, and
it's unbiased. Then again, it's being the observer, not the person who's experiencing this.
But also validating the person who's experiencing this. Like,
Absolutely.
It's okay that I felt this at the time.
Absolutely, because in the end, it's all tools.
Yeah.
As much as we insist on the detachment of the ego, the ego is one of the best tools that we have to work in this life and to do something about our lives, And all these things, emotions are tools. And they're a beautiful way for us to feel life, Like, I was talking to my girlfriend the other day on the phone, and I was like, because she's been away for work, I was like, how beautiful it is to be so sad because I'm missing you so much. Because I found myself where I was in a situation where I was missing her so intensively. And I was really sad,
Yeah.
Then I just reflected on the matter. I took a step back and I was like, oh my God, this is actually beautiful.
Yeah.
Like, how much do I love her? How beautiful is that I had the chance to stumble upon a person that I love so dearly, that the mere physical absence of this person, regardless of connectivity and everything, is causing me to feel sad. It's amazing. You're like, wow. Even sadness can be cool.
Yeah.
So instead of being sad, I called her. I'm like, I miss you. I'm so happy I'm missing you. She's like, what the fuck?
Yeah, but it's true. And also, for example, anger, it drives you to act or to do something about it. Or
there's no action without anger, of course.
Like, all emotions are for a purpose. Okay, so if we put this in a way that So if someone, for example, finds themselves in the same situation as you, what helped you is first decide that you're going to do something about it, not accept the status quo, and seek new understanding, new perspectives that will help you see the situation in a new way. So for you, it was a spiritual perspective and reconnecting to a spiritual part of yourself. And at first, this made you feel worse before feeling better. Also, it's good to know that. And then once you had this observer perspective and spiritual perspective to actually observe yourself and understand where all these thoughts and emotions come from by accepting them and not judging them or identifying with them, and reframing the way you perceive certain situations in the past that made these thoughts come now. Is that a good, like, what would you add to that?
What came later?
Yeah, so what came later?
What came later? No, exactly. You know, like I always had these conversations with my grandma because my grandma is like, she's a genius. She's just a genius. Like she's
Yeah.
the person who was there during this whole phase. And we're kind of going through the same phase at the same time.
Okay.
And she always had dreams about a larva, une chenille.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Like chenille.
Building a cocoon.
Yeah, the before the butterfly.
Yeah, the before the butterfly. That's the species we're looking for. Building a cocoon. So actually entering darkness.
Yeah.
Like it's entering.
She was dreaming about this.
Yeah. And then blooming into a butterfly.
Okay.
And I find like I think that if we were to actually summarize this whole journey into one phenomena that happens in nature, it would be that one. Any other one as well, but this one is like just so on point, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I'm just part of this ecosystem. I'm eating leaves. I have my friends. I have everything. But then I feel that I need some time for myself. I think that I need some perspective. So I build my cocoon. And I build it, you know, like I take full responsibility of doing things for myself. I don't have my parents that are helping me. I don't have my friends. I don't have my therapist that's building it for me, because all of these will be good supporters, but you're doing it for yourself. The will and the action are coming from you. You build this cocoon with anything, like, you know, with the things that you've collected and the things, everything that's around you. You build the cocoon and you isolate yourself in the cocoon. And then eventually the metamorphosis happens. But imagine how painful the metamorphosis have to be, you know? You're morphing from one species to another, from one form, which is like just a thingy, into a butterfly that can fly, you know? You have to grow wings, you have to change your body, you have to change so many things. So this darkness is so intense and painful, but you have to go through it in order to see the light in the end.
Yeah, I agree. And it's not a linear, like it's a bumpy ride. And I love this because I remember when I was going through this dark phase, I was doing an acting course in Paris. And I met a friend there, a girl that I didn't know before. And she was the first person who understood what I was feeling, like now all that we're talking about. And she had seen like the other side, kind of. And she was the first person who told me, I understand what you're going through and it's going to get better. And I remember when I started this podcast, I wanted it to be for someone in my situation who doesn't have this person to know that like what you're going through, it's okay and it's going to get better. And I feel like now what you said, I
think like the conversation flowed perfectly to reach that. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And I'm even going to re-talk about the same metaphor that I was saying. You know, the chenille, the before butterfly, I don't know the species, we'll have to look it up and write it somewhere. But the before butterfly, before turning into a butterfly, would feed on leaves. Leaves that are actually for flowers or for any kind of greenery is their way of getting sunlight and nutrients within their system. It's their way of feeding themselves. So in order for the small larva, whatever it is, to feed itself, it was feeding off something so vital to another species just to satisfy their own feeling,
Okay.
their own satiation, their own cravings, you know. After the transformation, what the butterfly does, apart from giving us the most beautiful thing to look at, is that it becomes a pollinator,
Okay.
which starts to feed on pollen. But at the same time, whenever it goes from one flower to another, it actually helps with the breeding of the flowers.
Yeah.
So it's spreading life rather than eating what brings life to a species.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is exactly what you're doing with your podcast. And this is exactly what was missing with my work and what I feel like I want to do now. And what I'm actually not feel like I want to do, what I actually am doing at the moment. And this is translating itself in two distinct ways. The first one is through the writing of a feature film, which kind of summarizes this whole podcast
Okay.
in a
I
film.
was super excited to see it. Yeah. I remember you told me about it a year ago.
I don't remember when I talked to you about
Yeah,
it.
like about the crime thriller.
Yeah.
part.
So it's a weird crime thriller thing during which like the detective is undergoing a huge existential crisis. And the lines between the suspects and the investigation and his personal quest of meaning become very blurry.
Okay.
Because everyone becomes a reflection of himself, and you know,
Wow.
like it's
Okay.
like kind of a journey to find himself in a way. And weirdly enough, we'll talk about it if you want, like when the film is out, hopefully, if I
for
manage to make
sure.
it.
Yeah.
But it's based on this experience that I just shared.
Okay.
But I added a lot of like chili sauce and salt and pepper
Yeah.
and spices,
Yeah.
and you know, burned it a bit in the oven, and then oh my
Okay.
god, started to boil it to save it. You know, like just
Yeah.
completely morphed, but
Okay.
the core is the same. And the second project, which I'm actually currently doing with my partner, we started this about 4 years ago
Okay.
in 2021, actually. 2021? Yeah, I think so. So we started talking about it and trying to make it work, but then life happened and she moved to France. We weren't together back then. She was my best friend. She moved to France and I stayed here and I went to nature and I disappeared.
Yeah.
And so it never happened. And earlier, like in 2024, in the end of 2024, we decided to revive the project. And it's a creative agency that's going to be focused on doing like branding, activation events, films, campaigns, everything related to what an agency does, you know, for projects, individuals, brands, products, anything that's just fully sustainably driven and ethical, transparent, and that actually share the same vision and the same core values that we do. You know, it's like
Yeah.
there are so many people trying their best out there. There's so many people doing the slightest thing that actually will have a huge impact on the world. Why would I enter advertising and promote stuff that are destructive for the planet, for health, for mental health, for everyone, everything, you know, selling a false idea of happiness to people, when I can actually take this and show an alternative way of doing things while not going and living barefoot on the beaches of India, you know, which is a dream in itself. But, you know, it's just like, oh my God, you cannot do that. Of course, don't do that. Just do whatever you want to do and whatever makes you happy, if it makes you happy or whatever, but do it good. And so this is kind of our big purpose for now. And we're working on this. We're actually finalizing all the internal stuff
Okay.
this week.
Yeah.
So
wow.
it
Okay,
should
so
be-
it's really soon.
It should be
Okay.
launching in the coming
But,
2-3 weeks.
Okay, really good. You let me know when
Of course.
when it's launched, because I love this idea, and I feel like so many people now are wanting like or are doing things that are, how do you say, like social impact, like driven to make a good social impact,
it's so
sustainable,
cool.
ethical, and it's and
I don't think a pair of Nikes are cool.
Yeah.
I think that this is cool.
yeah,
You know?
yeah, and it's meaningful.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, and it gives hope. It gives like it just brings out humanity within us.
Yeah.
Like let's
I
do
love
whatever
that.
we can creatively, whatever we can to promote virtue in the world, you know? And this is it.
Yeah, love that.
Shukran.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. That's it.